everybody and welcome back. So I know a lot of people asked about the sewer lateral that we have to dig up and replace. I know a lot of people wanted me to rent my own machine and dig up my yard myself to save myself some money, and maybe that'd probably save some money. You're probably right about that, but simply put, I've never used any type of machine like that. I've never used an excavator, a digger, forklift, anything kind of like that. The lift is probably the closest thing I've ever used to it. So I think there'd be a heavy learning curve, and let's not make a bigger mess out of my yard than it has to be made. But we did sign the contract. That work should be going in soon, so that should be handled. Of course, that makes things a little close, a little tight as far as money is concerned, but not that big of a deal. We will get it done, and we'll move forward. So here we are at the side door, and the paint has come off quite nicely. It's looking pretty good. Obviously, I have a little bit of paint left on here. But I'll hit that with the Coopers and we'll end up with something that looks more on the lines of this, which is pretty nice. It's also nice to know that these are the curly pine panels, which the back door didn't have, but everything here on the first floor and the second floor has these panels. So it's good that it matches. It definitely is an original door. However, it's not fully in its original configuration. When I was peeling at this, you can see there's a little kind of dip right here and a slight discoloration right here. And if we go to the top, we have a matching one up here. This one you could probably even see better. See, it's a bit lighter there. There used to be another style here. So this was actually 2 windows, not one single one. So why that's been removed, I'm not quite sure. I don't have the capability to replace that right now. I'm sure I could figure out how to do it. It's certainly not a priority at this exact moment. I would definitely have to find some old pine to make it out of, something I currently don't have, or at least a large enough piece to make that with. So that's kind of a bummer. But of course, as soon as I took the paint off, I realized what was going on there. Other notable damage is this here. This is a big chunk, as you can kind of see. It's where all the locks and stuff go, and they've been wiggling, wobbling around. It's not been a terribly good door because it looks like somebody, I don't know, kicked the door open at some point or something, and this piece is really rough. And this is actually after me sanding a lot of this jagged stuff down. You can kind of see the color difference here, just so when I do come to fix it, which will be with my router here in just a moment, it won't be a problem. If you have a flat surface, then your bit's not, pushed in a different weird way. So essentially what I do here, you see my lines, I'm going to router this big chunk out and replace it with this, which if you guys remember from the bathroom restoration, this is a piece of the old door frame from the butler's pantry. So the original doorway from the bathroom, this is just a piece of that. So it's the same age, and if you look at color-wise, it's a pretty good match. So this should blend into this quite well. Of course, there'll always be a line here, but it's kind of the best I can do with what I was given. That'll have to also be the same thing with these 2 locks, or old locks that used to be in here. I'm going to remove these by essentially cutting out a piece of this, cutting out a square in here, and then patching over them. It's also a much stronger way than using any kind of wood filler. Also, I don't want to paint this door. I want to keep it natural because, again, I have, there's some sort of finish on this door. So since it was finished to begin with, I want to keep it finished. So let's get the router going. I'm sure this will be a pretty quick little time lapse, and I'll get back with you and show you how I plan on doing the rest of this. So here we are back with the door. And as you guys can see, the little patch worked out pretty well. It's almost unnoticeable. The color of the woods is close enough. Now I've gotten a little bit of stripper on this, so that's why you see little bits of staining here and there. I need to sand that all back off. But the line looks pretty good until you get to about right here. And then yeah, my router kind of, well, it hit a nail because there was a hidden nail in here and it jumped a little up here. So not the best work I've ever done, but I should be able to wood fill that. It shouldn't be too terribly noticeable. Now again, this door is cracked and messed up and there are holes and ridges, so in the grand scope of things, I don't think that really takes away from it too much. Next time, however, I will be using a guide. I should have done that the first time around to make sure that cut was absolutely perfectly straight, but it's pretty close. You know, if you're this far back, you can't really see it that much. Of course, the way I have the light pointed is directly at it, so the shadows are really heavy and contrasty right now, because I wanted to show you guys as best as possible the little mistake I made. But it is certainly looking a whole lot better. I have to fix all of this side here now too, because you can see this is all still quite chewed up. Now I would have done this all in one shot, but I really needed to get my lock back on this door. This is the main door we use almost every day, so not having a lock was kind of a problem. So I got this on in as much haste as possible. And in the meantime, I was using this little chain hook that was still on the door, which, you know, worked halfway decent. Nice thing we're having good weather right now, because without the good weather, that would have been really annoying. It's a functional fix. It should allow this to stay closed, not be as chewed up looking, and actually allow this to lock properly. The door itself started to come out pretty nice. I do need to get down in here and just kind of sand the last little bit of gunk, let's say, that's on it off. And we should be looking at a much prettier door. So here's the inside portion of the door. Obviously looking a lot better now that it's not painted. Curly pine panels looking nice. And of course, I've got my lock back on. However, there's still these holes I have to figure out exactly what I'm gonna do with. I think they're going to be patched just like the other ones. This one was an old school type of deadbolt. There's actually one on the vet clank door that I can show you guys a little bit later. But essentially you'd have your deadbolt here and there is no inside piece. So this is all mounted inside the door. So that would come out here. This is all mounted on the exterior of the door that just goes through. Older style of deadbolt lock, and it would lock into this. Of course, the biggest problem with something like this is the fact that you have to cut into this beautiful trim to push it in there. So that's a problem, and it's something I'm gonna have to fix at some point, because that looks really bad. So this hole has to get fixed on this door, because I'm not gonna use this kind of lock on this area of the house. And I believe this hole here was something to do with the security system. There was actually no locking mechanism here. It was this weird little key shaped thing, like a vending machine key shaped thing on the outside. So I can only imagine that had something to do with the security system. And then, as I said before, this is what I was using for a lock for a day. And I actually think I might keep it because it's kind of cool. Again, I don't really like it on this trim, but maybe it's for a downstairs door or something like that. Still, it's cool, and it's old. I mean, it's brass, so, you know, it's been here probably for a while. Probably wasn't here from the very earliest of days, but still a little cool piece of history of the home that maybe can be used on one of the basement doors. I also did want to point out this panel right here. Maybe a few of you guys who have a pretty keen eye saw in the time lapse, when I was stripping this area, there was all these little bits of paint up in here. I mean, you kind of see how beat up this grain is. Whatever happened here, something was hitting this repeatedly and left all these little dots and scratches. I can only assume it was a dog, because it looks like they hit it often and a lot. So this is gonna end up with, well, I could either leave it all chewed up like that, or I could wood fill it. Either way, there is no getting around it that you're gonna be able to see that. That's just there now.
But of course, that isn't the only damage to this side of the door, which is kind of a bummer. It's the inside. So, you know, we had a little bit up here. And then of course there's human damage, attaching random whatevers to this door. Also up here, who knows how many different styles of curtains have been hung on this door repeatedly, because that's a lot of different holes for a lot of different patterns. Yeah, I mean, that's at least 6 different attempts of how to hang a curtain on this door. Which I understand you don't want people just kind of peeking in on you from the side here, but there has to be, you know, pick a hardware and stay with it. So yeah, this door is definitely going to require quite a bit of work still to get this all back and correct. And I don't think I'll be able to put in this center panel back anytime soon, at least. So we'll stick with it the way it is, clean it up the best I can, and get it into a nice functioning, working door again. Well, it is working, but you know what I'm saying, like a nice looking, functional door. So next week with this one, I gotta fix all these old lock kits. You can see the amount of times they've mounted different plates for the deadbolt in the door. They've really chewed it up. So this is gonna have to be same thing I did with the door, router it out, new piece of wood in, router the hole for this, for the deadbolt to the bolt itself to go into. And hope that it holds, because that doesn't work at all. Same thing down here. This is for the actual doorknob, the old school lock set. So this is gonna have to be taken off and cleaned back up. New stuff added. Atlas thinks so too. We're gonna get a door working, huh? It's pretty exciting, huh? He doesn't seem terribly amused about it. But yeah, so that's really what has to go on here. There's a lot of, you know, cutting out the bad and patching in new stuff. Because ideally I don't want to wood fill any of this, because when you stain wood fill, it doesn't look great, or what in my case for here, shellac it. A lot of this will be hidden because I've had to put spring bronze here, which I did get this week, which is good. So a lot of the windows will be getting that. For an idea of what spring bronze is, there's actually an old piece of it up here, although this is not technically bronze, but it has the spring in it. So essentially when you close the door, this makes an air gap because it pushes, has resistance on it. Of course, all the little nails you see in the spring bronze can be a problem when they start coming loose. And when your hinge starts coming loose, you can see modern screws in this hinge, and it's real wibbly wobbly. It's not on there all that well. And because that hinge started failing, those nails from that spring bronze, well, they made themselves at home in the side of the door. So kind of all over the place. So I've had to kind of fix a lot of those as well. And since I'm not painting this door, it makes it a little harder to put something in there that looks halfway decent. So these will be getting just your normal run-of-the-mill wood fill in a nicer color, and hopefully those won't be too terribly noticeable. I mean, they will, but they'll look better than they do right now. And again, here at the bottom, you can see those stripes from all those little nails. They really did quite a number to that door. So we're gonna make sure our nails are all nice and tight against the grain, and then we fix that hinge here soon, which is I'm gonna do by just putting a bunch of wood fill in that as well, the Albitron stuff, which is pretty hard, it's epoxy. And that way there's more surface for the screw to actually hold in there. And actually one of the reasons this door is done so well, even with that really loose top hinge, is because this is the only door I've seen in the house so far that actually has 3 hinges. So 1, 2, 3. That being said, there might actually be more than one door with 3 hinges. I just haven't paid attention, I don't think, enough. But this is the first one I've noticed. It's definitely one of the thicker doors I've worked on so far as well. But that's enough about this door. Let's go to door number 2. So here's as far as I got with this extremely beat up, almost garbage door. And I've actually kind of impressed myself with this thing. This door was, I thought, a replacement piece. I didn't think this was going to make it. And I now know the reason why this door itself actually, more than any other door in the house, didn't fare as well as far as the elements were concerned. So this door, as you guys know from last week, is from the vet clinic. And that doorway itself actually used to be a window that was added sometime in the teens or 20s. When they built all of the other doors in the house, all of these joints you would see here and everywhere else on the 1890s doors, so the original doors, are all mortise and tenon. And what a mortise and tenon is basically you have a tenon, a large chunk of wood, and then a mortise, which is a hole in this wood in the same shape as the tenon, and they meet up and together. You have a very large surface area of both pieces of wood connecting to each other. Makes for a very, very strong joint. Any woodworker will tell you that. And so all the joints in a door like that were mortise and tenon. So for instance, this door, the back door that I was working on a few weeks ago, this one was all mortise and tenon joints. And all the other doors that I've messed with and all the windows I've messed with have all been mortise and tenon. Now when I had this door apart, I noticed, and this is the style here that fell off, that there was no mortise and tenon in this. It was just dowel rods. And essentially what a dowel rod is it's trying to mimic the same action, the same joint. So you have a dowel rod laid between, this is one piece of wood, this is one piece of wood. You have them laid between about as long as my finger there. Just, I think there was only two here, well, two for each piece. And so that's all that was really holding this together. And it's not nearly as strong as a mortise and tenon. And so when push came to shove, it failed. Basically what I'm trying to say is the 1920s tech of dowel rods is not as sturdy and as strong and as time tested as the old mortise and tenon joint. It's just the better technology, let's say. But I think overall with this, just how beat up this door was, I'm pretty proud of it. I think it came out quite well, and I'm just excited to be able to get it back into a serviceable condition. I did also mention to you guys upstairs about the outside mounted deadbolts. This is what I'm referring to here. Essentially, it's a normal deadbolt that you just mount on the outside of the door and has a hole through, and then you would have the lock portion, the normal keyed system, on the other side. So it's just an older style of deadbolt. I don't know if they still make these. Probably they do, at least on some sites. And I don't know when they fell off popularity. Leave me a comment below if you know exactly when they started and stopped using this style of lock. Kind of interesting. Definitely has a modern key on it, so it can't be 1890 old. But certainly, I don't know if I did guess 50s. So I don't know, kind of cool, and I need a good deadbolt on this door anyways. The old school lock sets are really easy to get around, so. So I'd love to show you guys the other side of this door because I have done some work over there and it will take a bit longer to do the work on that side, mostly because I plan on having that side shellacked or the wood left raw, essentially. And since I have to do that, I have to be a bit more careful about how I wood fill things. On this side that you guys just saw, I was able to just throw Albitron wood filler in there. I know it'll stay, I know it'll be strong, and I basically just paint it and kind of forget it. So that side was a little easier and a little more forgiving as far as cracks and holes and bumps and things are concerned. The other side though, I have to use other types of wood filler that are less strong, that take longer to dry, all this other stuff, and I have to be a bit more careful about presentation, let's say. So it just takes a bit longer to really clean it all the way up. I need to get all the paint off, all the residual, anything that's on there, all the coloration, so I can have a nice clean looking door. And it's still gonna have plenty of imperfections because there's lots and lots of holes in it. So that'll be a topic for next week. Obviously I have to get the rest of the painting done on this door. It's gonna have the same style paint that the other exterior door has. And I think that'll look really good on the side of the house. And speaking of that door, I got this little lock set on here. So finally got this on here. Of course, I completely forgot to get the actual plate, which kind of extends out from here. Kind of the same thing of the old school deadbolt. I have it primed upstairs, but I still need to put the black enamel on it. But, you know, works like a normal door. course, it has a deadbolt as well. And you can open up the door and life's good.
So that's the end of the episode, guys. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed. But before I let you all go, I wanted to extend a thank you to each and every one of you guys who watch my channel. All of you really do make this whole process possible. This channel allows me to be able to take my time, learn the skills, and do these processes properly. You guys are really allowing me and Kim to get our dreams. And we owe a lot of that to you guys. So I just wanted to say thank you guys always so very much for coming back and supporting this channel and, well, rooting us on. So if you're a repeat watcher of this channel, just know you really had a big hand in making this all possible. So again, thank you guys so very much. We'll see you guys again next week. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.